That is a Hebrew name. It means Christ killer in Hebrew. That is that's what it means. That's the biblical translation. No, I have two names though. This is a real thing. I got two names. Eitan, that's my Hebrew name. That's the name that I go by. And then Evan. Evan is on all of my legal documents. And the reason why is because my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And they're afraid that the Holocaust was to happen again. They wanted to give me like a secular name I could like duck under. You know? Because Eitan Shmuel Levine, very Jewish. But Evan Shmuel Levine fools everybody. I'm the hidden Jew of the Upper West Side. Nobody knows. Jewish names are so loud and specific and chaz and blachas just over and over. I grew up in an Orthodox community. There were a lot of adopted kids that were in this community, and they all had behavioral problems. And no one could figure it out. Everyone would be like, why are all these adopted kids misbehaving? And I would always be like, yeah, I would have anxiety too if I was the only Asian kid named Menachem Goldfarb in the entire planet. I would have the same issues. Non-Jews, you guys gotta stop trying to be lawyers. You guys are terrible lawyers. There was a documentary about what happens if you don't have a Jewish lawyer called Making a Murderer. That is... no Jewish lawyers in that show at all. No Jew has ever been like, oh, I met my wife on birthright, don't you know? Oh, yeah. Israel has every right to defend herself. Choke. Okay. There were these two lawyer duos in New York named Celino and Barnes, and they weren't Jewish, and you knew they weren't Jewish because they had a jingle in their radio ads. They had a jingle in their radio. The jingle went, Celino and Barnes, injury attorneys, right? It's nice. No Jewish law firm has a jingle in its radio ad. Every single Jewish law firm's radio ad is some dude yelling, just like, my name is Josh Lowenthal! And you're entitled to compensation! Every single one sounds like Bernie Sanders at every debate. It's like, 100% of kids have mesothelioma! Pay them their money tonight! Jews could never do a law jingle because we love terrifying facts. A Jewish law jingle would be terrifying. It would just be like, is your baby covered in lead paint? Let Noah Gordon Bloom sue your landlord. Man, Bubby's boy, also thing. I love my grandmother. My grandmother loved her to death. She was also the meanest human being alive. That is a fact. It's a fact. Every grandmother has a plate full of cookies ready to go in one hand, and then a bucket full of insults ready to go. Every time I would go to her house, it would always be the same thing. It would always be like, I made homemade fudge. Your father was a mistake. There's nothing of a ballbuster for my grandmother's. My grandfather was also a Holocaust survivor. He got out of the Holocaust, he went out to Paris, he joined the resistance fighters in Paris, and he was known for having sex with a lot of women. Now, why was I told this about my sweet, sweet Zadie? I do not know. But apparently, Moshe Eckstein was the original fuckboy of Paris, right? But that is not the guy that I met. The guy that I met was a quiet shell of a human, because whatever the Nazis did to my grandfather all those years, just like wasn't as bad as whatever my puppy did to my grandfather all those years. He got out of the Holocaust and was like, boom, 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 down to fucking kill. But then after my grandmother, he was like, I don't buy eggs without her permission. My grandmother has, she has the funniest Holocaust story. This is just bear with me, okay? So she gets out of the Holocaust, right? Remember? And so she's out of the Holocaust. She's on the boat going from Europe to America, right? She's going from Europe to America. And on the boat, they had a problem, because they had all these scared Holocaust survivors who were going to land they didn't know. Everyone's terrified. So they had a bunch of events on the boat to boost morale, right? And one of the events on the boat was a beauty pageant. Now, let me just say that again. One of the events on the Holocaust boat is a beauty pageant. And my grandmother won the Holocaust beauty pageant. And I found this out because I had been recording conversations with her before she had passed, and she tells me this, and I go, oh my God, you were Miss Holocaust. And she responds by going, well, we went from port to port with Bremenhaven, Paris. I was like, you were Miss